Welcome to The Curious Machine. Today we're taking a deep dive into some truly extraordinary and, let's face it, often misunderstood claims about the power of the human mind. We're talking about concepts that sound, well, straight out of a blockbuster movie. Moving objects with your thoughts, maybe, or communicating mind to mind without saying a single word. Our mission today is really to unpack the evidence that has, the compelling stories, the alleged demonstrations, and crucially, the scientific facts. We want to help you, our listener, truly understand what might actually be possible and what, well, remains firmly in the realm of fiction. So, when we talk about the power of the mind, often the first image that pops up is moving things without touching them. What's the scientific term for that, and how do we even begin to categorize such an extraordinary idea?
You're hitting on a classic, yeah. It's known as telekinesis, or sometimes psychokinesis. In its simplest form, it's the purported ability to influence physical objects using only your mind. No physical interaction whatsoever.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could just think about it and, I don't know, turn a camera around or make a pen roll across your desk just by willing it. That's the basic claim.
The willing it part.
Exactly. And that's where the scientific reality kind of steps in pretty hard. Over the years, countless individuals have genuinely claimed to possess these telekinetic abilities. Many truly believe they could control objects with their minds. However, the scientific consensus is, well, it's unequivocal. There's zero reliable, repeatable scientific evidence to support any of these claims, period. Every single alleged demonstration, really without exception, has been exposed as, a hoax, a clever trick, or sometimes even self-deception.
It seems like history is just littered with these kinds of, well, ingenious deceptions, doesn't it? From subtle stuff like hidden threads to, outright confessions. The pattern seems remarkably consistent. Let's maybe delve into some of the more famous tricksters and their methods.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's quite a cast of characters, actually. You have figures like Joseph Latino, an Italian medium. He would supposedly move tables during seances. Turns out he was caught using his foot.
His foot, okay.
Yeah. Or Stanley Thomas, a Polish medium, who made objects appear to float using these thin, almost invisible threads. Very classic magic trick, really. Then there's the American performer James Heydrich. He was famous for appearing to turn book pages and spin pencils, on TV. He later confessed he achieved these feats just by cleverly blowing air.
Blowing air, seriously.
Yep. He even admitted his goal was, and this is a quote, to see how dumb America was.
Wow.
And it doesn't stop there. Russian psychics Boris Ermanov and Alice Vinogradova used electrostatic force and concealed threads for their levitation tricks. And the French psychic Jean-Pierre Girard, who claimed he could bend metal with his mind. He utterly failed to replicate his abilities when tested under controlled laboratory conditions.
And of course, Uri Geller, probably the most famous.
Right, Uri Geller, famous for spoon bending. His methods were consistently replicated by magicians using, well, simple conjuring tricks. Stage magic, basically.
It's baffling, though, isn't it, how so many of these claims, despite what seems like intense belief sometimes, just crumble under real scrutiny. What are some of the underlying reasons, maybe from a scientific or psychological perspective, that explain this consistent pattern of failure?
Well, beyond the obvious explanations like chasing fame or simple deception for money, there's something else. One fascinating insight from cognitive science is how our brains' really powerful pattern recognition system can actually construct what feels like a psychic experience. So when our mind anticipates a specific outcome, like an object moving, it can interpret ambiguous sensory data or even just random events as confirmation. It makes the magic feel undeniably real, even when, objectively, no external force is present. So it's not just about tricking others. Often it's about tricking ourselves at a pretty fundamental level.
Ah, okay. So self-deception plays a big role.
A huge role, potentially. Plus, when these powers do inevitably fail under observation, the excuses are always ready. You hear things like, oh, my powers don't work under pressure, or they require belief from the observers, that kind of thing.
Right, the vibe has to be right.
Exactly. What's particularly telling is that many of these individuals had actually approved the experimental setups beforehand. So there were no surprises, scientifically speaking, when their abilities just vanished.
That really makes me think about how easily our own minds can play tricks on us. It's quite humbling. But okay, beyond the debunked shows and these psychological explanations, there is a really fundamental scientific reason why psychic telekinesis is considered, well, impossible, right? It seems to directly violate some of the most basic laws of physics that govern our entire universe. We know of, what, 4 fundamental forces? There's gravity, the pull that keeps us grounded, electromagnetism, which is behind light, radio waves, all our electronics, then the strong nuclear force holding atoms together, and the weak nuclear force involved in radioactive decay.
That's them.
And pretty much every single interaction in the universe, from, apples falling to stars burning, is governed by these four forces.
Absolutely. Every single one we've ever measured or observed.
So telekinesis would need what? A completely near unknown fifth force? Or it would have to somehow violate established principles like the conservation of energy and momentum.
Exactly. It would fundamentally rewrite physics as we understand it.
Huh.
And to really put it into perspective, just think about the tiny amount of power our brain actually generates. It's minuscule. The electrical current flowing through your brain is incredibly small, about 1 nanoampere. Just one.
A nanoampere? That sounds tiny.
It is. For comparison, a modern smartphone's current is about 320 million times stronger.
Wow. 320 million. Okay.
Yeah. So even if you could somehow get all 100 billion neurons in your brain working together, simultaneously directed towards a single task, which, by the way, would probably trigger a massive epileptic seizure.
Right. Not good.
Not good at all. The total power generated would only be about 0.00085 watts.
0.00085 watts. What can that even do?
Barely enough to light a tiny LED bulb. That's it.
Huh.
To put it another way, if you wanted to charge, say, an old iPhone 5 using only your brain's total continuous output, it would take you a staggering 68 hours.
68 hours? Just to charge a phone.
Yep. And that's if all neurons were working. If we consider only the typical number of active neurons at any given moment, maybe around 100 million, that charging time jumps to 285 days.
Okay, so definitely not practical for charging devices.
Not even remotely. And it's not just electrical power. The magnetic fields generated by brain activity are also incredibly weak. You need highly sensitive equipment, basically magnets 20,000 times stronger than Earth's magnetic field, just to even detect them.
So for anyone hoping their brain could, power their smart home someday, that's probably a dream for the very, very distant future.
Extremely distant, if ever, through biology alone.
But it really puts into perspective just how different the mind power we see in fiction is from our biological reality, doesn't it? If the brain generates such incredibly weak signals, what does this all mean for that popular idea of mind over matter in its traditional psychic sense? Does it just render it a fantasy?
From a practical physics standpoint, and a theoretical one too. Yes, unfortunately, it pretty much does. Telekinesis, as a purely psychic power, emerging just from the mind itself, is, as far as we understand the universe, impossible. You know the saying, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And despite centuries of people looking and claiming, we simply haven't seen any credible proof in this domain. None.
Okay. That seems pretty definitive on the psychic front, but this does raise an interesting, maybe more optimistic question. While psychic telekinesis seems off the table, what about using technology? Could engineering help us amplify the brain's tiny signals to achieve something like telekinesis? Is that feasible?
Now that's where things get genuinely exciting because, yes, theoretically it's possible. It shifts from pseudoscience to engineering. If we could develop technology to accurately read the brain's extremely weak electromagnetic signals, a huge if right now, but theoretically possible, and then amplify them tremendously with electronic circuits, and then crucially, precisely direct that amplified force, then yes, we could theoretically create something like a supermagnet controlled by thought.
A supermagnet controlled by thought.
Yeah, this kind of supermagnet, powered by external technology, but guided by your mind power, could indeed move ferromagnetic objects, metals that react strongly to magnetic fields. It wouldn't be psychic power in the classic sense, obviously. It would be heavily reliant on advanced engineering, a brain-computer interface.
I see. So technology as a bridge.
Exactly. But there's a pretty significant practical hurdle, even theoretically. If you were to just activate such a powerful supermagnet without incredibly precise control, it would just indiscriminately attract all nearby ferromagnetic objects.
Oh, right.
Imagine getting pulled headfirst into your refrigerator, or all the knives and forks flying off the kitchen counter towards you. Not ideal.
Yeah, that sounds hazardous.
Definitely hazardous. So this is precisely where advanced bioengineering or sophisticated control systems would need to come in. You need to figure out how to overcome those challenges and create a targeted, controlled effect. Maybe in the future.
That's a fascinating leap, though. From debunked psychic claims straight to the cutting edge of potential technology. Okay, let's shift gears a bit then and explore the other big one. Telepathy. Mind-to-mind communication. Now, this is a different concept from telekinesis, obviously, and maybe seems, I don't know, a little more plausible on the surface, at least not in the way psychics claim it, perhaps.
Right.
So, telepathy is defined as the transmission of information from one mind to another without using any known senses or physical interaction.
Exactly. And you hit on a key distinction. While it's still completely unproven in a psychic sense, telepathy is scientifically not impossible if. And it's a big if. If we could find a way to reliably get signals out of one brain and into another person's brain, then maybe human biology could handle the interpretation part. It frames it as a potential technological or biological challenge, not magic.
Okay, that's a different angle.
It is. And the idea of telepathy itself, it really gained popularity back in the late 19th century. That's when the Society for Psychical Research was founded. People back then were increasingly looking for sort of scientific-sounding explanations for mental phenomena, especially as the physical sciences were making huge leaps forward.
And just like with telekinesis, there's a long history of thought readers being exposed as fakes, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Magicians like Washington Irving Bishop and Stuart Cumberland, they performed these really impressive thought-reading acts back in the day. But they readily admitted they weren't psychic. They used something called muscular sensitivity, basically, reading tiny, unconscious body cues from their subjects. Cold reading techniques, muscle reading,
So very subtle observation skills.
extremely subtle. And then you had early experiments, like those of the Creary sisters or George Albert Smith and Douglas Blackburn. These were later exposed as hoaxes involving secret signal codes or, in some cases, just outright admitted fraud.
The usual pattern.
Pretty much. Even attempts at long-distance tests, like the famous Turner-Ownby experiment back in the day, they initially showed these impressive scores. But as soon as proper scientific controls were put in place, things like sending the results directly to a third party to prevent any chance of manipulation, the scores drop right down to chance levels. Average.
Interesting. So tightening the controls made the effect disappear.
Every time. And you even had things like the BBC doing radio tests back in the 1920s. They asked listeners to receive telepathic messages. They got thousands of replies, but analyzing them showed absolutely no statistical evidence of telepathy actually happening.
So what's the overall scientific consensus on telepathy as a psychic power then? Similar to telekinesis.
Very similar. The scientific community has consistently found no compelling, repeatable evidence to support its existence as a psychic ability. It's generally considered pseudoscience. Partly because, like telekinesis, it seems to contradict fundamental laws of science, like how any known signal fades dramatically with distance. A telepathic signal wouldn't, supposedly.
Right, distance wouldn't matter in the psychic version.
Exactly. And most alleged telepathic experiences,
Yeah.
they can usually be explained by well-understood psychological phenomena. Things like cognitive biases. Confirmation bias is a big one. We selectively remember the times we thought of someone and they called, but forget all the times we thought of them and they didn't.
Yeah, I can see that.
Illusory correlation, hindsight bias. Then there's simple sensory leakage. Maybe you subconsciously pick up subtle cues, tiny sounds, almost imperceptible movements, maybe even faint indentations on cards in some experiments.
Sneaky.
Can be. We also really underestimate coincidences. How often might two people who know each other well, like spouses or close friends, just happen to think the same thought around the same time? Probably more often than we realize.
Good point.
And then, of course, there's cold reading again. Techniques performers use to cleverly gather information about people without them even realizing they're giving it away.
Okay, so lots of non-psychic explanations.
Lots. Yeah, and it's also worth just briefly noting that in psychiatry, the idea of thought broadcasting, the belief that your private thoughts are being sent out to others, or thought insertion, the feeling that thoughts are being put into your mind by someone else, these are actually recognized symptoms of psychosis, particularly in conditions like schizophrenia. They're symptoms of a serious mental health condition, not actual abilities.
That's a really important distinction to make. It's curious, though, isn't it? Even with all the scientific debunking we've just walked through, the idea of telekinesis and telepathy still holds such incredible sway in our stories, our movies, our culture. I mean, think about characters like Harry White in Stephen King's Carrie, or the Jedi and Sith in Star Wars using the Force, Eleven in Stranger Things, even Matilda Wormwood using her powers. They're everywhere.
They really are.
What do you think it is? Is it just the pure escapism and fantasy, or is there something deeper there that keeps us so captivated by these specific powers?
That's a great question. I think the allure of the extraordinary is just incredibly potent for us humans. We want to believe in something more, in abilities that transcend our everyday limitations and our current understanding of the world. It's deeply appealing.
A desire for magic, almost.
Perhaps, yeah. But the scientific standard for evidence, as we've discussed, has to be rigorous. It requires repeatable results under controlled conditions, and that's precisely what's missing for these psychic claims time and time again. Does that mean we're almost, I don't know, wired to be susceptible to these kinds of claims, even when faced with overwhelming evidence to the contrary? Maybe. The human mind, as you said earlier, is easily tricked, and sometimes that desire to believe in something magical or extraordinary can override our critical thinking faculties.
Absolutely. It's a powerful pull. So just to summarize our deep dive today then, we've explored the big claims of telekinesis and telepathy. We've seen how science has pretty consistently debunked alleged psychic abilities, mainly due to a profound lack of reliable evidence, and also because they clash with fundamental physics.
Right.
We also touched on that intriguing, though maybe still very distant, possibility of technology-aided mind control or communication, which is a totally different thing, rooted in actually measuring and amplifying real brain signals.
A very different beast, yeah. Engineering, not psychic power.
So thinking about all this, given how easily our minds can be tricked and how much we seem to desire to believe in these extraordinary abilities, how does knowing these scientific explanations, the debunking, the physics, how does that change your own perception maybe of the magic you encounter out there in the world, whether it's in stories or even claims people make?
Thank you very much for sharing this enjoyable conversation with us. Until we meet again tomorrow with a brand new topic, take very good care of yourselves. Goodbye.